Okay. Brzezowski, Frank,
Here,
that's you, Frank?
here, yep.
Okay. Chapman, Brian,
Here.
Chapman, Diana,
Here.
Chapman, Matthew. Conklin, Jessica,
Here.
Scott, Stephen,
Here.
Gardner, Brian. Mel,
He's
I
on.
thought I saw him on
There he
the
goes.
earlier.
Hey, I don't mean to jump the line, but I got a call, so I'll be back in a minute.
Okay, Mel? Okay. Colleen Holder,
She's online there.
I'm here.
thank you. Ellen Ingalls,
Yep.
Dr. Kellogg,
He's at our networking.
okay. Bill Kennedy. I got you, Bill. Alan Lewis.
Here.
Tim Marshall. David McGinnis.
Here.
Dan Miller. Kelly Miller. Jim Page. Dave Rapture.
Here.
Yep. Brandon Rossetti. Rossetti here. Jeff Sweet.
Here.
Terry Simons.
Here.
Mike Von Beveren.
Here.
And I had Mark Sikora as well, right?
Yeah.
Anybody I missed?
I don't know if you called me Donnie, but I'm here. It's Tim.
I did. Thank you, Tim.
And this is Ben O'Brien. I love you guys too.
Who?
O'Brien.
Oh,
O'Brien.
okay. All right, roll call is complete. We've got a quorum. You all should have seen the minutes from the previous meeting. Any additions or corrections? Take a motion to accept.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Aye.
Who's opposed?
I think that was a late eye.
Okay. Correspondence, remember that Vital Signs Conference is this upcoming weekend in Saratoga Springs. Hybrid conference this year. And it sounds like they're quite excited to welcome people back to an in-person conference. New York State notices a violation, reprimands. Got revoked effective May 25th with a civil penalty of $2,000 on Keisha Brockington from Staten Island for violations of 800.16A2. Revoked effective June 3rd, 2021, Manisha Atkinson, Rosedale, New York, for violations of 816A5 and A7. Surrendered for revocation upon consent effective June 1st. Robert Lukens of Socrates, New York, for violations of 816A7. Suspended for 1 year effective June 1st, 2021. Suspension stayed. Civil penalty of $2,000. Civil Frost, Brooklyn, New York. Violations of 816A7. Suspended for 1 year effective June 10th. Bensonhurst Volunteer Ambulance Service for failure to comply with a previous stipulation and order. Bensonhurst is in Brooklyn. So they've been suspended for 1 year. Certification suspended for 6 months effective June 9th, 2021, and 3 years probation. James Schofield, New Paltz, New York, for violations of 815A1 and A2. A formal reprimand effective June 14th and a civil penalty of $2,000 for violations of public health law 3006A, C, 3053, and part 800.21, the Nassau County Police Department. Civil penalty of $2,000, suspended for 1 year. Suspension stayed for violations of Article 3012B, 3006, and 800.21. Mountaindale Fire Department First Aid Squad. A civil penalty of $2,000 with half stayed, 3 years probation effective June 10th. Richard Harold of Manasquan, New Jersey, for violations of Part 800.3. James Philbin from Staten Island, revoked effective 7/22/21, and a civil penalty of $10,000 for violations of 800.3 AP1 and 800.3 AL. Suspended for 1 year effective 8/3/21. Suspension stayed pending no further violations. Civil penalty of $2,000. Francesco Berardi of Staten Island for violations of Part 800.3. Suspended for 3 years effective 8/5. Suspension stayed. Placed on probation for 3 years effective 8/5. And a civil penalty of $2,000. Joseph Kine Bensimon of Long Island City for violations of 816A2 and 816A9. Suspended 8/24/21 for violations of 800.16A11. Kevin Steger of Beacon, New York. Issued a reprimand 9/2/21, placed on probation for 3 years, and assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 with half suspended pending no further violations for violation of Part 800.3. Will Davis from Astoria, New York. Revoked 9/13/21. Civil penalty of $2,000 with 1,000 suspended pending compliance of payment for violations of 815A3 and 816A1. Thomas Warrington of Blue Mountain Lake. Suspended for 1 year effective 9/16/21. Suspension stayed pending no further violations for 3 years. Civil penalty of $2,000 for violations of Part 816A5. Eric Geisler of Scotia. Suspended for 3 years effective 9/17/21. Suspension stayed pending compliance with probation. Placed on probation for 3 years. Civil penalty of $2,000 with 1,500 stayed pending compliance with stipulation for violations of 816A2 and 9. Timothy Leach of Blue Mountain Lake. Assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 effective 10/13/21 for violations of 816A4 and 9. Christine Correa of Brooklyn. suspended for 1 year effective 10/18/21, stayed pending no further violations. Civil penalty of $2,000 for violations of 816A5. Christopher Howland of Amsterdam. Revoked effective 10/7 or 10/27/21 and assessed a civil penalty of $4,000 for violations of Public Health Law, Article 30, Section 3012 LF, the ambulance service of Fulton County, New York, in Clifton Park. Revoked effective 10/27/21 and a civil penalty of $4,000 for violations of 3012-1F, Johnstown Area Volunteer Ambulance Corps in Johnstown, New York. Revoked effective 10/27, assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 for violations of 816A8, 816A11, and 816A9. Robert Gala of Brooklyn. Excuse me. Certification suspended effective 11/2/21, stayed for 1 year pending no further violations, and a civil penalty of $2,000 for violations of 816A10. John Sinelli, Grand Island, New York. And suspended for 1 year effective 10/29/21, stayed pending no further violations, assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 and must provide proof of remediation for 816A2 and 816A3 violations. Matthew Martinez of the Bronx. Sounds like the Department of Health's been busy. Any other correspondence? Okay, seeing none. Minutes have already been approved. Committee reports, we'll start with systems.
Systems did not meet. We did nothing today.
Okay. CMAC and SEMSCO. I have a few details from SEMSCO, mainly with regard to Department of Health staffing changes. We were notified at the October SEMSCO meeting that Jean Taylor would be retiring, initially with a retire date at the end of this year, but she's agreed to stay on for a period of time to help with the transition. And also Liz Donnelly. You know that Liz was out for a while on a medical leave. Liz is back in the office, but the understanding is, or the news was that Liz is going to retire at the end of the year. So congratulations to both on their impending retirements. We wish them the best. And there really was not a definite plan for who or when replacements would be looked at. Also, most of the information from State Council was in the realm of training. There was discussion on clinical rotations for EMT basic students, and the fact that post-COVID, it remains difficult for students to get clinical rotations and clinical time. And they've changed the requirements for EMT basics to have 10 patient contacts, which can be kind of difficult riding an ambulance, you know, depending on where you're located and what shift you happen to catch. Course sponsors are urged to think outside the box and look at other options for clinical rotations to get EMT students through. New cards are being issued. Some of you may, if you've renewed in the last couple, 3 months, may have already gotten and seen the new cards. They're actually quite nice. And lastly, I'm sure you saw it in the news, but New York is in the search for a new commissioner of health. Dr. Zucker was asked or offered to resign. And the new governor probably will replace her own team. You swing the door, please, Rob. Yeah. Thanks. So that was the majority of Sunscroll meetings. And I'm gonna let Dr. Kellogg speak to CMAC.
I don't think Dr. Kellogg's on.
I'm sorry, not Dr. Kellogg, Dr. Waslinski. I apologize.
Be back here and this and that.
Dr. Waslinski's on his way back. She got out the door before.
I'm not a high energy person, and my dog got me beat.
Tell me about it. Actually, Dr. Waslinski, do you have any comments you'd like to make from the CMAC proceedings?
Just more for innovations of things that might be on the horizon about more treating on scene and transport to alternate destinations where not only emergency departments, but possibly urgent cares or walk-in centers. Really all that was actually moving forward. A lot of speculation of things that might be to come, but we'll leave those for when they're more final and more concrete.
I understand that, and they discussed at the Sunscroll meeting, the fact that the CMS was very close to opening another application period for ET3 billing for New York ambulance services. And their expectation was mid-November. And somebody had mentioned that possibly AMR is already moving in that direction. So I assume the application period is either open or going to be open very shortly. ET3 billing allows for ambulances to bill for treat and release cases such as diabetic wake-ups, cardiac arrest field terminations, treatment refusals, and community paramedicine programs. And on the issue of community paramedicine programs, Ryan Greenberg noted that 40 of the 62 counties in New York have approved community paramedicine vaccination programs, and the executive orders from the governor have extended the ability for providers to do COVID and influenza vaccines. With that, Ryan's goal is to have a community paramedicine agency in all 62 counties. So I asked while I was on the call for a quick list of where we stood as a region. Irway Ambulance is on record as being a community paramedicine agency for Chemung County. As yet, there is not one for either Steuben or Schuyler. So if somebody'd like to move in that direction, we've got resources to be able to help make that happen. Any questions for CMAC or Sunscroll? Okay, StreamAct. Again, defer back to Dr. Waslinski.
The one topic that keeps getting brought up for Stream Act from this council to there is use of RSI in the region. It is something that we are looking into. If there are enough cases that would justify the use of RSI for the region, please bring them forward. Please let me know of them because we want to get a tally and a total of the number of times it would have been beneficial. It is a very labor-intensive process to institute an RSI protocol and requires a lot of medical oversight. So if it is something that will help the region and will be beneficial, we would gladly talk about it. Other than that, I think that's the only topic that keeps getting brought up. We meet in next month So I don't expect there to be anything brought before next month, but if you keep an eye over the next 3 or 4 months and just get those cases to us, we can start looking at it.
Questions for StreamAct? Okay. Training and education.
Training and education did not meet. We did not have any meetings. We have talked in our region. We were hoping maybe, we did some other than just the Zoom conferences that they were going to open back up. And as things have gotten better, it's been quite a hectic year just for the training agencies to get their EMS classes back up and running. So we didn't want to rock the boat too much and expect these people to do too much, but we have feelers out right now as far as moving forward. If the stance stays the same and everything stays true to form, that we start getting some normality back, hopefully moving back in the direction, maybe even this spring visiting another group day, CME day like we had last year. That seemed to be quite entertained by the that were there, not only just the topics, but just for those people to get back together, because there's always a lot of exchange of information between corps and what's going on in the region and other regions as well. So just kind of, if anybody's got any ideas or any feedback or anything, but nothing new on this end, Donnie.
Okay. Brandon, you want to update on the paramedic program?
I don't believe Brandon's on.
Oh, okay. Any other questions for Frank in the training and education?
Donnie, as long as Brandon's not on, we've seen some of the students and I've talked with them. We also have 2 from our corps in paramedic school. It seems like the courses around the region are getting back on track. Everything seems to be going smooth. We haven't had too much pushback or problems. As you said, the clinical rotations is always a challenge. The hospital letting anybody in, period. But I think we've got Band-Aid most of those, and at least in our region down here, we're monitoring that close as far as trying to schedule so there's not an abundancy hitting the doors at the same time. I had a conference meeting about a month ago because the nurse students, and some of them do ride time as well as their clinical rotations. So hopefully, COVID doesn't put us back in all again, but as we've been moving forward, it looks like a lot of this is getting back on track. But the feedback I've had from most of the paramedic programs is moving forward pretty good.
Good. Frank, have you guys looked to see how agencies that are registered in the CME recertification program are doing with the required training to use the online portal?
Sure, we can look at that. I don't have any of that in front of me. I've pushed that, and I actually had the luxury of sitting in on 2 other outside agencies to see how theirs is run, for their updated CMEs, not anything that's a required CME, but just to see what they offer in other regions and stuff, to see, how close we are to what they're doing and things of this nature. But there's different programs such as the Target Solutions and some of the other ones that are out there. And I know there's been a realm of a lot of the area corps that are trying to get some of the programs going. And, I've tried to offer up as much information as we can to try and move them forward. There's always that expense that's there, but, certainly it's definitely a need, and it helps, especially in these times. But anybody that has a working job, working family, and then trying to make classes besides, that's what puts a lot of stringencies on these corps, especially the volunteer corps and the outlying areas to get to classes and stuff. So definitely, it's a necessity, and we've got to keep eyes on it. And I think we've proved a lot of that through Zoom and what we've done through COVID, that, we can make those availabilities there. So certainly structure that moving forward.
Actually, more short term, I was referring to the fact that you no longer mail your applications in. Last month, they rolled out their online portal to submit completed applications electronically. And the state did an education piece. It rolled out. I saw it, actually saw it through Milrems. In order to be able to submit the applications electronically, they're requiring you to do the training program with respect to getting the applications scanned and getting forwarded. That's where I was kind of headed with that question.
Gotcha.
But if agencies are looking for help submitting CME research applications online through that new portal, reach out to one of us. I know Mike sent me some information, Pirzolo, on the online portal trainings. So if anybody needs help with that, reach out to one of us and we'll get you started with that, submitting online. Any other questions for training and education? Public information.
We did not meet. We don't have anything. Only thing I'm gonna bring is you guys should have gotten an email from previous meetings asking for information again on the commercials. Devin McGinnis was able to get in contact with WETM again. They gave a proposal. The other TV station never got back to him. So I'll bring that to you guys to decide what you would like to do with that. Also, Jim Page had an idea of possibly bringing up information on radio ads and possibly billboard ads. Other than that, that's it.
I have a quick question on this proposal from WTM. That's 300 spots for $5,000. That also includes producing how many commercials? Or is this just one commercial for 300 spots? Or are we gonna, like the last time, produce 3 or 4 different commercials and kind of mix them in on the 300 spots? Is that, how is that gonna work?
I don't know, Devin, did he go into detail or just, if not, we can check and see how it is. Our contact from before is no longer there, so this is a new contact.
If I may, we have the option to reuse the commercials we have done so far, as well as tape a new one if we want. I don't know about the number of how many we get. I can acquire us to that if that's not within the information provided.
So you don't know if it's included in this $5,000 or it's not included in the $5,000, the production of new spots?
I don't have that answer for you, Rick.
Good enough.
Do we have any information on what the return of the last amount of money we spent was? Did any service get any interest calls for new employment?
I don't have that information.
As I recall, when we went on that project, we were going to take a look at that after the fact and see what the actual value was.
On our application, we track on how you heard about us or how or why you came to employ or submit your application, you know, different reasons. And one of the reasons was advertising, and nobody, out of all the applications I received, nobody did. I had a couple of people mention that they saw them, but nobody said that that was the reason that they applied. I think it would be more for the course sponsors to say, to maybe they could start asking, the course sponsors maybe could start asking of why are you wanting the EMS training? Is it, you know, or what brought you to come get the EMS training? Was it, and maybe we could find out. I think that's really where it is. It's not so much the employment aspect of it. It's the training aspect of it is where we should be looking at, don't you think?
But that sounds good, but we could train 2.3 million people and get no applications for employment, and we did absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I guess you hate to assume, but the assumption is that if you're gonna go for the training, you're doing it for either one of two reasons, either for volunteerism or for employment. So, and we're looking to help on both sides of that, so, but.
Yeah, when I say employment, I also mean the volunteers.
Yeah.
Are we getting anybody out on the streets?
I don't think these ads are targeting people that are already EMTs or paramedics saying, go out and find jobs. These are targeting people, hey, you know, if you're looking for a good career, you know, EMS is what you need to get into, and training is the first step. So isn't that where we should be looking at if these are effective?
And when was the last training done? Or the last commercials, 2 years ago?
I don't have a clue.
Yeah, it was before the pandemic.
Yeah, so we may have caused it.
So we can wait for training, that's what.
But that's what I'm saying, that's 2 years. I'm not against it, I'm not for it, I'm just wondering, are we getting our money's worth?
I don't think we're asking the questions to find out if we're getting our money's worth. I don't think we ask the questions. And I don't think asking the questions is the employment aspect of it. To ask it, where we should be asking questions is, are the people going for are they seeing these commercials and saying, hey, that looks like fun, maybe I want to become an EMT? And that's where we should be asking the questions, is what I'm saying.
We do have the conversation night one. What brought you here? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? However, we don't calculate throughput.
In my experience, anecdotally here, I did not witness any of the commercials or anything like that organically. They were all sent to me by someone saying, hey, here's a commercial. But that's just my experience. I don't watch a ton of TV. So I don't think the advertising is the way we're doing it. I don't think is worthwhile. That's my opinion.
Should we be spending our advertising dollars maybe somewhere else, maybe like the BOCES healthcare programs?
Yeah, I think Devin brings up a good point. There's so many people that don't watch TV anymore. There's other options out there that we kind of missed the mark with a local TV station. Most of the people that are watching those are older like myself, and they're not going to change careers. They're not going to do something they haven't done for the last 40 years.
So would it be, I don't know if this is within your grant, but a recruiter per se that goes to BOCES, goes to the high schools, goes to those career days and has that conversation. Or and Facebook and stuff that they are looking at. Facebook and
TikTok.
Twitter people.
yeah, that.
Apparently TikTok is a thing now.
Yeah, training someone.
Well, and when we went into this project, we went into it with the idea that we were gonna give it a shot. We need to explore new things, and the sense that I'm getting, the feeling that I'm getting is that we need to explore a different project this time around. And, you know, maybe a recruiter and targeted work is a way to go. If anybody has any ideas, reach out to Jeff, so we can start putting some ideas together and figure out what it is that we'd like to do.
We did hear a lot of positive feedback. However, it was somebody who recognized your service or one of the others. You know, they related to the commercial, but there was a lot of good commercial, but they had a connection. It wasn't people who were wrong. It was very good PR. You know, I would tell you that, you know, in my opinion, it was very good PR. Whether it got you what you wanted to do, questionable, but it certainly got you a presence and it was very favorable.
I think it's very hard because of COVID for us to really evaluate how important, how beneficial this was. It seems though we should consider doing another year and try and figure ways to track it better. I think being out there is not bad. for the industry. The more you can get us out there. And seems to be, we need to do that. I know the United New York Ambulance Network is looking at ways to do a statewide, more informational type thing. And we're looking at Facebook, we're looking at some of the other avenues to get the word out. It's really hard to do that unless you want to spend $100,000. It's really hard. So I don't think this, I just don't see this $5,000 as being wasteful. I think the COVID issue kind of broke off any opportunity we had to start to track. I mean, it takes a while for these things to evolve and people to come in and you can finally zero in on how they got the message to seek out EMS or whatever. I'm not sure we should poo-poo this unless there's something better to do. You know, the BOCES thing, I think is very important. I think trying to get BOCES to be more involved in training EMTs is, I think, a real plus for the state. I hope more people are looking at that.
Al, Tim typed in, and I agree with some of his things, looking at other avenues like social media to get the younger, if we're looking to get to do other things, getting into the high schools, getting into the things of that, they're more on the social media basis of that sort, or radio stations or something of that.
I'm having a meeting next week with a marketing firm for MSTAR. Maybe this is a question that I could bring up to them and see if maybe that's something that something the council may want to invest in as well, is maybe going with this marketing firm. It's the marketing firm that the State Emergency Nurses Association used. So maybe that might, I'll just pose it to him and see if he has any ideas, or maybe get kind of a feel from him and bring that back to the council and see if maybe that's a marketing firm is what we may want to employ.
It's a possibility that we're on the right track with commercial packages. We just don't know how to market what we want to market. And maybe that's, maybe that's a combination of things. Maybe we can evolve what we're currently doing so it's more market savvy.
Rick just pointed out aiming for your target audience. What he's
Right.
using is aiming for a target audience. He's going to identify the audience he wants. Henry's right. It's not identifying people his age who have been watching TV for 30 years and decided that I'm retired, I want to pick another career. It's getting the people who are young enough to make an impact for 15, 20 years. So figuring out your target audience and who you want the ads to appeal to is probably the first step. And then somebody can help you gear towards that audience.
Well, I have to quote Mike Rowe. I mean, trade schools are underutilized.
I completely
Do we
agree.
have a unified goal for what we want to advertise as well? I've just heard a lot of like kind of different paths. We just don't have a set agenda. Like, what are we trying to exactly accomplish
Well,
with advertising?
let me pose the question to this marketing firm when I talk to them next week, and I'll just I'll bring back what I hear from them to the council.
Definitely.
Send out a quick email to everybody.
And when is the next meeting?
January.
See, that's the problem. If you remember 2-3 years back, excuse me, we went through a very similar thing, talking about doing some advertising. You know, it was over the winter time when people probably do watch more television because of the more time inside and so on. And came up with some ideas and said, well, let's check on this, check on that. Months go by and nothing is done because we're checking on something else. So my question would be, do we as a group have some way to approve a set number of dollars? I don't care if it's $6,000 or whatever, to set aside for the committee to come up with some, what they feel will be valuable marketing, whether it be radio, television, or whatever, billboards, commercial type of stuff, and go ahead and try some of it, test the waters a little bit. Because if we don't, then we're back into the springtime again and we haven't done anything.
Problem is, Dave, is I don't even know how much money is required for all this. And I mean, I'll send out an email right after I speak with this marketing guy next week and see what he thinks and maybe get a feeling of how much it would cost to employ him for marketing and find out and see where he recommends targeting. And then I'll send that email out the end of next week to all the council members, or I'll give it to Nikki to have her forward it to the council members.
Can we do that by email?
Oh, well, I don't know about approving, but at least we'll have the information.
So I think I kind of figured this out. Listening to everybody's concerns and comments. We can certainly nail down all these details by email. And we could probably poll the council, and the executive committee could approve an expenditure prior to the January meeting under our current bylaws with the idea that it would have to be affirmed in January. So I guess on the part of the executive committee, it would require us to trust you guys an awful lot to not change your mind if you decide in December that you want to spend $5,000 and we go ahead and by our bylaws approve that expenditure. I'd really rather not have you in January say, no, just kidding. But I think we could acceptably do that. Like I said, the executive committee can do that, but it's subject to affirmation by the full council. And if you guys want to work on this and try and push it through sooner to capture the winter market, Rick can gather up any ideas, suggestions that the marketing experts have. And we've got estimates on a package, and we'll go from there. Like I said, we can poll council unofficially. And if everybody's on board, then I think the executive committee can meet and approve the expenditure and get the ball rolling. Does that sound like a reasonable compromise, Dave?
Yeah, I think it is. My only concern was that, it's like deja vu all over again. We've already taken this approach of bring it up in a meeting in the fall and talk about it and market, and we'll check on this and we check on that. And the next thing you know, it's springtime and the people are busy doing more outdoors, less time in front of a television. And so that's why I'm asking the question about, legally, can we approve monies for the committee to test the waters with here and there a little bit? And if I'm not mistaken, this money is all available to us. It's not like we have to dip into our personal pockets for it. So if it's there, why not try to use some and see where we go with it?
Oh, and I think that's what I was getting at. We need to have a finished product that executive committee can approve. And I have no problem setting a deadline. You want to set December 10th as a deadline to have something ready for executive committee approval? We'll not kick the can down the road, but we've got a process to be able to do this in accordance with our bylaws and in accordance with the state's regulations for how the money gets appropriated and used.
That's the other thing is, no matter what we come up with, we got to get state approval again. They approved it the first time, does not mean they're going to approve it the second time. They should, but we're still going to need time to get the approval.
I agree with that, and I like the idea of Rick's marketing strategist, shall we say. But I think we need to set goals here right away, and what it is that we want to do. I think our biggest thing, the two things that we should deal with is one, awareness, public awareness, and two is recruitment. Retention is a problem industry-wide, agency to agency. But I think it's awareness to know we're out there, and two is recruitment. I think COVID kind of hit us in the privates because no one wanted to touch this job with a 10-foot pole during the pandemic. And I'm not so sure they even want to do it now. But I think that if, unless I'm missing something here, I think those two goals should be what we're looking at. If, you know, Ricky, if you decide that, or when you do talk to them, you know, what avenues would be, well, to hit the younger group to want to participate and do this.
I just don't know how it's all gonna play out. I don't know if a deadline is possible. You know, I won't know until I speak with this guy how this is gonna play out. I don't know if it's, I mean, are we talking about maybe we speaking with him to employ the marketing agency to come up with strategies for it? Or are we just looking for free pointers from the guy? I mean, if we're just looking for free pointers from the guy, I don't know how hard I'm gonna push him on that. I was more looking at talking with him and seeing about maybe we can employ him if he's not that expensive to come up with strategies for us, because I kind of feel like we're floundering on strategy.
But if he's a marketing agency that's been around longer than a week and a half, he's already gonna have preset strategies for certain groups.
Sure, he is. I just don't, we just have to decide if, you know, when I talk with this marketing guy, I'm gonna get some information from him. But I thought it was more as employing him to come up with strategies for us.
So roll that into what I'd like to see finalized by December 10th. He'll be able to tell you what his services would cost.
Right.
Put all of that together and get it back to the executive committee. And we will poll the entire council informally, and executive committee will make its decision based on that.
We just need an objective, guys. We need to know what it is we're doing and what we want them to do for us.
I think you hit it on the head, Mark. I think you hit exactly what our goal is. And I think that's the question that Devin was asking. We're looking at two things. We're looking at public awareness and we're looking at recruitment.
I think, Donnie, too, the two things that we're looking at, you know, marketing is great, you know, and I understand that you don't want to waste any money, but when you're looking at marketing, you're seeing what I can get for bang for my buck. And that's not why this whole campaign was started. It's recruitment and retention for the corps, and what's 80% of those corps? Volunteers. It's not about money. It's about turning these people out and what we're going to express their interest in. Yeah, COVID hit us and it pushed back on a lot of that. Maybe we didn't track numbers as well as we should, but the idea was to get that awareness piece out there. Not what we got, not what the numbers look like, not what we got bang for our buck, but get the awareness piece out there. And I think we did a damn good job of that and getting that out to people. Stroke awareness, heart attacks in the system fast enough. That's a big piece that we teach in EMS. That started to generate the publics a lot around this area anyways, as far as how do you guys operate? How do you work? How does the calls come in? And we gave them that information piece they were missing before. So if you want to know what you got for your buck, you got a lot for the buck for what we put out there for that first piece. Maybe we didn't have the numbers to track it that well, but I think the advertisement did well. The second piece, as far as the volunteers, you know, trying to get somebody in this field, which is a low paying field, to go into these schools and stuff to get these kids as far as that education. I think we're talking about two different things there. And that's not what this was set up for initially. It was set up for to try and get some of these volunteer corps help make that awareness piece out there that there are agencies that need assistance, and get some of these people. And as Dave said, it hit right at COVID. So a lot of people were scared. They didn't even want to take face in the job, but I don't think the marketing thing's the way to go. I personally think, you know, what we had in mind to do with the money for recruitment of these corps is what it was set up for.
So if recruitment is your goal, if that really is your goal, I think my suggestion would be you need to form a small conversational group, tag, or whatever you want to call and discuss recruitment, because retention is tied to recruitment. Because your greatest recruiter is somebody that's in the system and saying, hey, Jimmy, this is fun, come on, or whatever the case may be. Most of us got into the system because we knew somebody or knew somebody who knew somebody. So you have to purify your retention. And also, we've kind of looked at it from a little bit deeper perspective. It's not just recruitment and retention, it's recruitment, training, retention, and sustainability. So you have to, there's some education to the cores to make sure they're sustainable. So do I want to go to a core who's stressed and I may be the only one showing up? How do you resolve it? So it's a big conversation. It's not just a recruitment conversation. It's not just a marketing, blind marketing spray kind of thing. It's how do you fix the whole model? And that's part of what the state had a conference and they discussed all that. I don't think they teased it out far enough, but it's a big conversation. And it probably should be had with a group here who know it intimately and across 3 counties and discuss how do we retention is part of the recruitment. I need to have happy people. I need to get people who are out talking me up and things of that nature. I mean, of the folks here, do you have a link to the people you were employing? I know Jimmy does, has a link to people he employs, but like say in Livingston, how does someone come up to be in Livingston? How does someone come up to be in Hornell? Or, how do they come to the ranks? Did they know someone encouraged them to get into it? And, it's just like a restaurant. I say I had a great hot dog there. Everybody's going down there to get a hot dog. I tell 10 people about a positive experience. Or negative.
If you will, when you think about what Frank just said, and thinking about it isn't just about the private agencies, it's about volunteers. And we may never get a full capture of how good this program has been across Steuben County and Chemung and Schuyler County. I don't know that we have to have that. I think abandoning this project right now, when you don't have another one online to start, may be the wrong thing to do. Maybe you consider continuing this project and in the vaccine, put together a better project you think is going to work better. And I got to tell you, if you're going to do something with some of these medias, you better get out the big bucks. There's no $5,000 going to buy anything in these medias. I think what we got may be working better than we think, but I know if we stop it, it's not going to be of any value. So I just don't think you should abandon it. I think you should give it a little more time and sit down with a group and say, okay, what do we want to do when we decide to end this program, instead of having nothing out there possibly for months? And the other question is to Jimmy, can we continue this project, or do we have to hold until you get approval from the state to move forward?
I would say we should actually ask the state for the second approval. They approved it last time. It should be a one phone call approval, and we should be good.
Basically, it's running by the DOH auditor, by Lynn Ferrugia, and saying, is this an acceptable use of the money? And her sending an email back that says, yes, you can do that, which protects us. So I think we've spent a lot of time listening to a lot of good ideas. I think the last remaining question was probably one of the first ones Jimmy brought up. For the money that's in the proposal, we need to know if that includes new spots or if that's the cost using the spots we already have. And if it's not the cost using the spots we already have, how much more can we get if they don't have to produce new spots? And I think that's a fair question to nail down. But let's move on this. Anybody that wants to offer up other thoughts or ideas, reach out to Jeff. Do so within the next week or two. And like I said, we can, Jeff, get those questions answered, Jeff and Devin, about, what exactly we're getting for that money. Or if there's a price reduction to use the existing stuff we already have. And then executive can meet to make the necessary approvals, make sure that the state's good with it and get it done.
Hey, Donnie,
Yeah,
just one other thing with that, just real quick, but, what Al was talking about, and as far as, the other social medias, down in our region, we don't have these commercials, and people, some of the volunteer corps don't see it by the time they get home at night and stuff, unless you're right there and catch those when they flip by. I get that, but that doesn't mean they don't see them, because that is how it happens. And it's not necessarily that you have to buy into these other social medias, because a lot of these, hey, I want to share this commercial. Did you see this on the news last night? And next thing you know, it's got 150 hits across somebody's Facebook page. So it is getting out on the social medias also at the same time. So there is backbone of dual function that we're not visibly seeing for track. The other thing I will say with that is Terry has a QAQI regional meeting set up next week. So we'll meet with all the area corps down here next week, so we can get a pretty good number and feedback from them as far as if they had anything from that and what they'd like to see moving forward also, so we can tie in. But we'll probably get a good expenditure of the region right down here in that QA meeting next week.
okay, sounds good.
Frank tapped into, he mentioned Facebook. That's really is small money if you spend money. And they do provide you with analytics at no charge. It's spraying, here's the qualities of it. It's spraying. You can target to some degree, so you can geographically spray it, you can age group spray it, those sorts of things. But they do provide, it's small money if you want to boost an ad, but it has to be, you have to get people, you have to have main people like we post, Works Fire post, Cornell Fire post, and then we have to get, because they'll tell you how many click-throughs you got. If you say we're offering a class, it'll come back and report to you how many people looked at this, how many people clicked through to find the course. So they're cheap, it's cheap analytics, but I don't know if it's high quality analytics, but it's there and it's small money if you want to dip your toe in the water.
Yeah, so I'll give you guys a couple, 3 weeks to roll into that, and we'll go from there. We'll try and not belabor this to the end this time. Anything else for public information? All right, QI? Terry, Dr. Kellogg.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. As Frank mentioned, we do have a QA meeting coming up next Monday night at 7 o'clock at the Hornell Fire Station. We're pretty excited to have this meeting take place, as we, like everybody else, have felt isolated and haven't been able to move forward due to COVID. So we'll see what happens.
Anything else?
In theory, the state really is going to put forward those quality metrics at the next meeting.
In theory,
Yes.
we'll see.
So that'll drive QI past that point.
Finance committee, Jimmy?
We did not meet, however, we did spend about $3,500 to date, of which $1,875 was the first payment to Dr. Kellogg as our council medical director. We do need to approve a $720 expense that we paid for Mike to go to a state training that the state said the council could pay for, but the program agency could not. And the executive meeting was, the executive committee was polled and it was voted to approve. So we need to bring that forward for council to okay.
Yes. So, you making that motion, Jimmy?
Sure.
All right, I'll second. Discussion?
What exactly was the training for?
Recruitment and retention. And they're rolling out a leadership academy. So it was 3 days of. The state got a grant to produce a leadership academy. And this was a training session for the leadership academy. And what they were trying to get was 1 or 2 people from each region to go to that and then turn around, train. Same thing with recruitment and retention, same grant or similar grant. They're rolling out a recruitment and retention program, and they want people to go back to the regions and do this. I will tell you this, we haven't seen the final product yet. This was kind of guinea pig. They need to get a bunch of people in the room and test this, and they're tweaking it. So it was based off of their grant. So there will be a leadership academy the state is sponsoring, and there will be a recruitment and retention program that the state is sponsoring.
With the council paying for that? I mean, I get the recruitment retention part, all that. I guess, what's the direct benefit for the council for?
There's not a direct benefit for the council. The statement, straight up, the direct benefit isn't to the council, it's to the region, to the providers. The only option was that the council could fund it and no one else could fund it.
It was to bring a trainer back into the region to be able to train individual agencies in recruitment and retention and leadership. But they're still waiting for this final product to come back so that they can actually start holding these classes, correct?
Correct.
And what exactly did we get for the money as far as, because in the past, there's been unapproved travel expenses, unapproved. Now, it sounds like this was approved by the state, they said you could pay for this, so does that include travel and lodging and food and everything's on the up and up with that?
Yeah, that was all state approved. And the executive committee, I believe was unanimously approved it. And we don't have the final product yet, so we can't tell you what we got.
But the idea is those classes are going to be available.
I can provide the initial documentation they provide us with. I would say this is not the final product.
I think it's a great idea, I just want to make sure that we're covered A to Z as far as what the expenses went on, and we're gonna have a product at the end to show what we did, you know what I mean?
I'm not gonna promise you a product because it's a state product.
Well, yeah, it's beyond your control, but no.
No, I see what you're saying. No, it was everything, all the receipts were submitted and everything like that. Because that's what you're saying.
I made a similar trip to Westchester County, beginning of October, trainer session for mental health for EMTs. And it's interesting because I haven't seen that finished product yet either.
Right. They had to burn through 3 grants.
Well, so it was a little interesting because when they called me and asked if I'd like to go, they said, well, book your hotel room. And then they wanted to know how many miles it was to White Plains. And they wouldn't pay me mileage to drive my own vehicle. They rented me a car at the airport and paid for the car. But I had to pay my own meals.
They were seeking out the cheapest form of travel.
Yes.
So if your mileage was less than what it cost them to rent a car and you drive down and back, that's what they were, it was lowest rate.
Yeah. So, but there are some new programs that are coming out from the Department of Health, and they just seem slow to roll out after they do these beta test classes.
They rolled those 3 out very quickly because they were at the end of their grant term. So they had to spend through that money on their end. The Leadership Academy, the recruitment and retention, and the mental health. And there's supposed to be an end product for that. Please, if you'd like.
What do you mean you're gonna do? I gotta head out, so.
Oh, just scratch your name.
So, one final question is, when it comes back and the training begins, is anybody gonna financially benefit from that?
No. I don't see how you, I imagine someone could, I don't see how.
I mean,
There's not a right
I don't-
model to do that.
I think what.
In other words, M-Star is not gonna charge to train the trainer.
Well, that's the question. Is somebody gonna charge, you know, is there a $50 fee to take this class?
No, not unless the state identifies it, sir. This is a state program.
Okay.
We'll be taking their program, just like an EMT program, and putting it out there. If they decide, and I don't see this happening because it's counterproductive, what you're trying to do. For them to say, yes, this is a $100 program. I don't see that happening. And we're certainly not in the interest of marketing this thing and selling it. It just is, it's not consistent with what we have to do.
These are state programs that they're rolling out, so they'll be similar to EMT classes, CFR classes, stuff like that. We're seeking local instructors. I know from my aspect, I'm not gonna charge anything to teach it. No health class.
The way it's designed to work is Donnie, myself, and there's some others that went these programs, come back and we train hopefully one person from each agency or something along those lines. Maybe not in Chemung County where it's a very robust, 30 agencies. But try to get some key people trained in, and then you will go forth and train your agency. So this is the training, we took to train the trainer. So we're training trainers, not, and we could train end users as well, but that's the idea is they collected up 25 people, go forth and spread.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Anything else for finance committee? Okay. Executive committee did not meet. But we will, as soon as, you guys have something, concrete to present us for the, public information. Any other old business? Actually, Tim, I want to pick on you for a minute. Kind of roll this into old business. I know quite a few of us were on the conference that where they presented the final report for Steuben County's EMS study. For those who weren't on that call, maybe a very brief summary of that night's call.
So yeah, we, as I've talked about in the past, the county hired a consultant, Center for Public Safety Management out of Washington, DC, to conduct a study of the county EMS system. They looked pretty broad at the whole system, response capabilities, number of EMTs, number of paramedics, transport times, all kinds of different information. All of the presentation information is available on the county website. If you go to the emergency services page under EMS, the presentation slide deck is there along with the actual video of the presentation. And then also the complete final study is also there available on the website. There's been some discussion in regards to what's, going to come out of this and where are we going to go. That's in the hands of the legislature on what direction they're going to take. At this point, we've got the study back, the information is there, and it's up to the county manager and the legislature to understand which direction they're going to take and what they're going to do with the information that they received.
Okay. Any other questions for Tim? It's a meaty report. I've read through about half of it. And I thought, I'm gonna go back to Cliff Notes. A very comprehensive report. with some interesting recommendations. So hopefully it's the beginning of a much needed evolution.
The one thing I would say about it, Don, is as you're reading through it, you have to be very cautious of looking specifically at the information that's provided there. And, because people look at the data and they say, well, the data doesn't match. Well, are you looking at 2019 data? Are you looking at 2020 data? Are you looking at only Charlie Delta Echo? Are you looking at complete overall EMS calls for the whole year? There's a lot of different nuances that are in the study. Specifically, there's some data that's thrown out because they don't have correct times on things like that. So you have to really read the headers before you go into the tables and start looking at the tables and just assume that the data is incorrect, because the data team did a very good job at trying to interpret the data. But again, every single CAD system that pushes data out to one of these studies, it's all, based upon the way that the CAD data is collected into the system and distributed back out. So I'll give you an example. One of the things that we worked with them very closely on was call processing time. And what we had found, like for calls that were for, say, for instance, an MVA with reported no injuries, law enforcement goes, they get there 20 minutes later and the patient, needs to be transported. So that's a 20-minute response time or a delay in response that gets captured by the CAD system, because the call actually started 20 minutes ago, but that throws off the whole call handling process time. So, little nuances like that. Mental health calls are another one, or psychiatrics, where you have to stage the ambulance, send law enforcement first. Law enforcement's on the other side of the county. They've got to get there, be able to secure the scene before EMS can move in. So, these are the things that we have to look at and take as a grain of salt with the study that is processed. So as you read through the data, you have to understand those facts before you can just start assuming that, these guys made the numbers up. They brought this stuff out of the air. It's all good data. It's all CAD data. It's just the interpretation of the details of that data.
Any questions for Tim? Maybe from anybody that saw the presentation? All righty. Thanks, Tim. On to new business. I have just one. I have reappointment of some new members of council. Their attendance and expertise is greatly appreciated. And I'm going to submit them for reappointment. Brian Chapman, Dr. Kellogg, Devin McGinnis, Kelly Miller, Jim Page, and Jeff Sweet. If nobody has an objection, I would nominate them all in one group for reappointment.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm sorry? Oh, that was a late aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you all. Next meeting, as I said, next scheduled meeting would be January. The date escapes me. If somebody's got a calendar handy. State council meets, I think the 10th and 11th of January.
It's like the 13th,
The 13th.
according to Nikki.
Okay. She is listening.
Yeah.
So January.
345.
Yes, what's that?
Subscale CMAC at 345.
Oh,
January 345.
okay. 345,
Correct. They had to move it forward because the executive order expired.
okay. All right. I better check to make sure I get the right dates. I could have sworn they gave me a second one.
I believe they did originally, and they bumped up, they might have bumped up against that executive order.
So the issue is I already took the time for the meeting that they posted for us, but, so we'll work that out.
I'll double check with Val.
Okay.
Those are bylaws.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was the other item, of new business. You all should have received today, the work from the bylaws committee. They did, a scheduled review of bylaws, council bylaws, made some changes, cleaned some things up, rearranged some things. And I guess they would, I'd take a motion in a second, and then those will sit for until the next meeting for discussion and possible changes and approval or disapproval. So tonight would be a motion and a second, and then they'll go on the table. They'll be tabled until the January meeting. If you didn't get a copy, reach out to Nikki. I know she's had problems with a couple email accounts. But be prepared to discuss and vote on those in January.
The biggest change we made was we took what Article 30 says membership is supposed to be, and we put that in. So the EMOs no longer have a guaranteed spot. Our EMOs are already members, has nothing to do with the fact that they're EMOs. So it doesn't change anything with us. But Article 30 does not give them a spot. And in fact, Article 30 says that the EMS coordinators are ex officio, so they don't even get a vote. But that we just copied what Article 30 says. That's the biggest change. That, and we were in our bylaws authorizing Stream Act to basically operate, and we have no authority to do that. They're an independent subcommittee. We have no authority to tell them anything.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion's made by Rick, seconded by Henry, and they'll go on the table for the January meeting. Any other new business?
There's an educational, if anybody's interested, in educational opportunity coming up. Dr. Hallinan was able to use her connections at U of R, and we're doing a burn packaging session at, let's see, it's Todd Hall's place.
Cooper's Fire Department.
Okay.
On January 29th, the burn program manager from U of R is coming down to do that. It'll be 6 until she finishes. It'd be great to see at least one from each fire department.
Is that something that could be videotaped and archived?
I'll ask Tom. Well, we can do that.
Ask if that's able to be done, if that could be videotaped and archived.
Is that something that the council would pay for? If we need to hire a videographer or something like that, is that expendable? I think something like that's a great idea, and then put it on a website where anybody can download it anytime and get the information.
I don't see why not. I mean, I'll call in tomorrow, but we're required to have our meetings. Donnie could just call an executive meeting or something there, and then that would have to be videoed anyway.
I mean, and is that something that MSTAR can do? I mean, obviously, the council would pay for the time and any equipment needs to be, but if MSTAR's being part of the process, and I say MSTAR, if Mike's going, can Mike do that for us and then we compensate for his time? Is that, how would that work?
If you want high quality, you don't want me.
I mean, we don't want anything for free.
Right. My perception of acceptable use of the council funds are, we can fund training things as long as they benefit the entire region. So if we're gonna videotape this session,
I think first we have to get authorization from the presenter to video.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, we'll check.
So we'll see if we can do that. And if the presenter is okay with it, certainly we can expend the money because it would be available. Obviously, Jimmy will check with Lynn, but it's something that we would make available on the website or available for any agency that wants to use it. And that's, yeah,
And all she's gonna wanna know is how much.
right.
Didn't the council buy a camera for council meetings, for recording council meetings?
Yes, we do.
We did and we didn't. We bought a camera, but it was never paid for. But we have a camera.
I give us that.
It was before the contract was signed.
And again, maybe the quality is a question, but we'll look into it. We're not gonna spend a ton of money. You know, there are plenty of ways to stream inexpensively nowadays.
Yeah.
We'll, you know, I think if you were looking at compensating somebody for mileage to go and run the camera and do that, I don't have a problem with that. I don't see us spending a ton of money in a production.
If Holland and Dr. Holland agree with it, we can figure out how to get it done.
I think it's a great learning session. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to take time out to go to these classes, but if at 3 o'clock in the morning, I might wait. Be perfect time.
But not only that, your whole department can't get up and go to these meetings. That's what this should be for.
That's perfect. Yeah, I think it's perfect.
I just think it would be good anytime that we have one of these in the region, it would be nice to videotape it and archive it.
Yes. Yeah, so we can start building a catalog of stuff that we
Yeah.
have available.
Then we can have a CIC or the doctor REMAC give us credit.
I believe you signed off on that. That's what we have to sign off on.
Okay.
Just sign right here.
Perfect. So we'll take care of that. It'll be available. As long as the presenter's okay with it. Now, if the presenter wants union scale actors guild wages, you're probably not gonna see it on TV.
No, that does ask a question. If they say, yeah, you can do it, but I would like whatever monetary amount for being part of this, that's also acceptable?
As long as it's actual expenses.
I don't think
we
she's
can-
going to because this,
Yeah.
Bill Hallahan facilitated it.
Yeah.
And also, I think it may be part of their public education program. I think that's the pot they're dipping into. She has to go out and do this so many times. So I don't think she's gonna come back on us.
I'm going to reference this talk, that's better than yours, I
Yeah. That's all she wanted was to lose the Henry. Any other new business?
think.
All right, I just need one more motion.
Make it.
Motion to adjourn. All right.
Second.
See you guys in January. Thank you all.
All right, thank you.